Welcome to the Krueg Show, everybody. Larry Krueger with you, and Casey Batemen is with us to talk a little baseball and a little bit about Telmetrix.co. Casey, what's going on? How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you doing, Larry?
Oh, I'm doing a short series, but yeah, we got a little off day for the Giants today. No baseball. Are you you're down in Southern Cal? Are you a Dodger fan, Padre fan, Giant fan? What's your fandom?
Purely a Giants fan.
Purely Giants.
Do have season tickets to the Padres, but I will never be caught wearing Padres gear. I'm always wearing Giants gear.
Well, it's funny. Giants looking pretty good. I mean, what's your vibe on the Giant? Obviously they won 107 games last year. This year they're off to not quite that same start, but there's something about this regime of the Giants that gives me total confidence. I don't know if it's the fact that Farhan is so sharp, and almost everybody that I trust and know in baseball says, yeah, he's 3 steps ahead of everybody. And then kind of as a group, they seem like they're playing pretty smart baseball. Every time I feel like, they're about to hit the skids, they seem like they kind of get a little bit better. They add somebody to the mix. They found Luis Gonzalez. So it's been kind of a weird beginning to the year, but at the same time, I think if you're a Giants fan, you got to be pretty encouraged.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if I recall last year, the beginning of the season started a little bit slow too. So I don't think there's any cause for concern. I still think it's going to be hard to catch the Dodgers, and we didn't think we'd catch them last year though. Wild card spot definitely seems imminent. I think if the roster can maintain health and we can see Tommy play, at least 3/4 of the year here, and Brandon comes back healthy and Cross stays healthy too, I think we have a good lineup. Seeing what happens with Bart will be fascinating, and whether or not he's ready for it or not. It seems like Farhan's ready to make changes if needed with the new acquisition. So I think it's going to be an exciting season. It's already kicked off that way. We're not losing too many series. We had a small skid, but not like a 12-game skid with the Rockies. So,
right.
It's been great.
It's so funny because a buddy of mine's like, right before the season, he's like, do I bet the over? Do I bet the under? What kind of year? And I'm like, I know the tendency is to want to bet the under because you're looking at them and they kind of look underwhelming. But the one thing I can tell you firsthand is that Farhan is insanely competitive.
Yeah.
So he's and if they don't win initially, he's going to keep making moves.
Of course.
And he'll make moves on the margins basically all summer long. And if those moves on the margins don't work, he'll make bigger moves. The reason I said bet the over on the Giants, and that means for people who aren't gamblers, meaning saying, bank that they're going to have a good offensive year, or a good year overall, I should say, is just that they're relatively rich. They have prospects to trade if they wanted to, and they have money to add payroll if they wanted to. And that's, so that they have the 2 forms of currency in the game, money and prospects. And when you have money and prospects and a motivated, competitive general manager, you got a lot of options. I don't know what it's going to look like. I don't know who's going to be here. I don't know what trades are going to happen, but they have enough organizational wealth to really throw a lot at it and be very competitive with the Dodgers all year long. And even if they don't win the division, I'm fine, going in as a wild card and taking our chances at that point.
100%. I mean, we've won a World Series from a wild card before. There's no reason we can't do it again.
Exactly. Now you're in a market that in Southern Cal and San Diego that the Padres are obviously they're looking for Bob Melvin, the new manager, to kind of show them leadership. They have talent. But what do you think of that ballpark, by the way? I love that whole neighborhood, the Gas Lamp District. Yeah. That is a phenomenal area.
I think it's great seeing Bob coming down to Southern California. I think change needs to happen. I have still not bought in fully. I mean, Manny Machado is probably the best player in the National League right now, which is great to see. He's had a few underwhelming and underperforming years. If Tatis can get his head on straight and start making an impact on the first day back in, then they can make a serious run. Petco Park, probably one of my top 3 favorite parks. It definitely doesn't beat Oracle, but it's still a beautiful facility. It's probably number 2 to me. The beer selection is much better here in San Diego, but food, venue, view, I mean, it's really hard to beat San Francisco.
What do you think of the way that neighborhood is evolved around the ballpark down there? It's a really, I mean, if you're looking to just, go down with some people, friends of yours, and have a couple nice dinners and go to a couple Padre games. I mean, it just almost seems like there's hotels right there. It's a really nice area to walk around. There's a huge array of restaurants all right there, probably, and some very, very good ones as well. What do you think of the gas lamp overall?
Gaslamp's fantastic. I think we're starting to see a little bit more originality in what you're seeing from a restaurant perspective. It was full of chains for a number of years, and now we're starting to see smaller owners coming in and really bringing authentic and unique experiences to the city as well as tourists. The Padres organization has also done a fantastic job with East Village, which is just over on a couple blocks down from Gaslamp, and we're starting to see a revitalization there that's been sorely missed. And it's nice to see a sports organization really commit to a community in that sense. And obviously it's going to help them with real estate and adding value to the team and to the product that they're delivering. Because again, with any large sports organization, the value add isn't going to just be in the ballpark or the football stadium. It's going to be the surrounding areas as well, and it's great to really focus on that.
Now we talk nothing but sports on our show, and you're an athlete. Tell us a little bit about your athletic background.
Yeah, I swam into college and became a professional triathlete. I focused on the Olympic Games for almost a decade. I retired in 2018. Got to travel the world quite a bit. I was very close to a few Olympic teams and just barely missed it, but the experience was phenomenal. I had dreamed of becoming an Olympian since I was 6 years old. I remember going to the library and renting the VHS tapes of the 96 games in Atlanta and being like, I want to do this. And then get to the year 2000 and had a weird fascination with Australia, and swimming was what I was into at the time. So Ian Thorpe being Australian, Sydney, Australia, I was like, sat there, told my dad we were actually playing basketball. I want to go to the Olympic Games. This is what I'm going to commit to. And my family, they got in on it and pursued swimming as far as it could go until triathlon popped up. Found out I could run really fast, had no idea, and just kind of took off from there.
Eric Burns is a buddy of mine, and post his playing career, he had a lot of muscle mass and he kind of shrunk down and he became a triathlete. And I asked him about, losing some of that muscle mass. And he's like, I really needed to cut it because my joints and everything couldn't, carry that much weight. And he wasn't that big of a guy as far as muscle mass. It wasn't like a D tackle or anything. He was just a baseball player, but he did have some, upper body strength. And now he's much leaner. He's incredibly fit and cut. And he's been doing the triathlons. What leg is the most challenging? You probably get that at every cocktail party you've ever gone to, but what is the most challenging part for you? Or is it the same for all triathletes and they all say the same thing?
So I think it changes because I came from a background of swimming. That came extremely easily for me, especially when you look at it at a professional level. Running was also natural for me. Cycling was what was most difficult. It's really amusing, and it was especially amusing to my parents. I didn't learn to ride a bike until I was 7 or 8. And so for me to then have a career where cycling is a predominant part of it was really fascinating and amusing. I picked it up fairly quickly, but was definitely a challenge. I think for most triathletes or people coming into the sport, swimming is the most difficult. It's the least natural of the 3 sports you're going to be participating in that day. I loved it. It's a great place to be in, or a great spot to be in coming from swimming. I learning to run is much easier than learning to swim. Speaking about like body change and stuff, I was 155, 160 pounds from 8th grade until college, and then didn't really grow much and ended up having to lose about 20, 25 pounds when I became a triathlete. So the lightest I ever was from 14, 13 till I was 28 was actually when I was 27, 28. So really having to slim down and focus on how I would use my body was a fascinating thing to get involved with. And my background educationally was in exercise physiology. So I had a deep understanding of how that could change. And yeah.
Does the order matter, or could you do it in any order?
So it's always going to be swim, bike, and run. The reason being is it's the safest way to finish a race is on the run. Trying to have a mass sprint on a bike can cause a lot of potential issue and be rather dangerous. Swimming, it's hard to judge who finishes first when you have a large pack of people. So, yeah.
How about harrowing experiences in the midst of any of your races? To me, the one that I would think of is, man, what if you had because sometimes I'll get like a calf cramp if I walk, like this weekend was the Beta Breakers. A few years ago I ran the Beta, or a number of years ago I ran it. I walked it with my daughter a few years ago. Awesome. And just 8 miles, your calves, your quads, your hip, you're sore. But man, sometimes I'd get like a spasm middle of the night, and I'm thinking to myself, what if you got like a calf pull spasm while you were swimming in the ocean? That to me would be like almost the most harrowing thing, because they're hard to, it's a hard thing to kind of get beyond. You don't really have a timeout while you're in the ocean.
Yeah. I luckily never dealt with that racing. There have been plenty of workouts where I've had severe cramps in the pool and had to drag myself across the lane lines to get out of the water. I've heard from many athletes that cramping in the swim it can be a scary thing. The most harrowing experience that I've actually dealt with, I was getting ready for my first national championships in 2011, and I was at a tune-up race, and the bike course wasn't closed, and I was hit by a car.
Oh my gosh.
Ended up separating my shoulder, and I had national championships were probably 4 or 5 weeks out, and went into just intense rehabilitation. Didn't swim at all until the day of national championships to get through it. And everything worked out fairly well. The result wasn't there, but still ended up.
But you did it, huh? You swam, you even with the bad shoulder.
Yeah, I had to get onto the bike the day after and really break that fear of potentially getting hit again. And so I was sitting in the garage with a sling on, riding on the trainer for a few hours and trying to get comfortable. I was working in a physical therapy clinic as an aide, and I had a great team to help me rehabilitate within that 4 or 5 weeks. I was young, so recovery is a bit faster in your early 20s. It was something.
Yeah, gosh, that's incredible. So those are things that you wonder if people draw on the strength that they get in certain, later in life. Let's talk a little bit about Telmetrix.co, a company that we've been advertising on our show, thanks to you and for a number of weeks now. And people will definitely shoot the name of the company back to us in the chat, and so it's definitely resonating on some basic level with the audience. But tell us a little bit about the company.
Yeah, so Telmetrix was created in 2020, focusing on creating tools for rehab therapists, specifically physical therapy, occupational therapy, and orthopedists. And we've expanded a little bit into chiropractic care as well. We use computer vision and machine learning to assist patients with their home exercise programs. A lot of the time when we face an injury and we go into physical therapy, we think the majority of the recovery is going to happen in the clinic. And most people are going to see their physical therapist 3 hours a week. As elite athletes, we got the opportunity to maybe see them 5-6 hours a week, but we still have 165 hours in the week that need to have treatment and care, and you're not going to get that in the clinic. So you need to be an active participant in your own recovery. And we find that there are a lot of barriers for patients to get that care or feel empowered to do the work to recover. So we had built these tools to assist the patients in that care with their home exercise programs in particular, and to coach those athletes or users or patients through their movements that are prescribed to them in a safe manner. And they can feel like they're actually still being watched by their therapist outside the clinic. They also have an opportunity to communicate with their therapist via our messaging platform. And lastly, all that data and information is sent back to the therapist so they can adjust protocols to enhance and improve recovery along the way. So you really feel like the therapist is with you when you leave the clinic and is still working on your behalf to help you recover and empowering you to do what you can to help yourself.
Well, it obviously fills a void. And what kind of reaction have you gotten from the people that have utilized it?
Yeah, we have seen a great amount of interest, and we are growing pretty quickly in terms of our clients clinics who are deploying the tools for their patients. We know that physical therapy has changed in terms of the method of treatment and care in the industry. We are seeing a lot of our competitors start to eliminate the outpatient facility and go straight to technology. Me being an occupational therapist and having worked in PT for a number of years, I know the value of that physical therapist or that rehab therapist, and they need to still be involved in that process. And these companies that are coming along are trying to eliminate that. So we're trying to empower those therapists and those clinics to compete, as well as show their value that we already know exists to those patients and users.
So it's not necessarily for physical therapists. It's really for people to use in conjunction with their physical therapist.
Correct. So the physical therapist is still prescribing, and we're not here to replace the physical therapist. We're looking to empower and create tools for the therapist to provide better care. We do have tools that are being developed right now for physical therapists to do evaluations of patients outside the clinic and helping assist with trying to determine if a patient should be in a clinic fully, if a patient should be in a hybrid type situation where they may only go to a clinic once a month or once every couple of weeks, or if they can truly treat the patient with communication with the therapist still completely remotely. So we're giving opportunities for therapists to increase their patient load and expand the access to their care as well as their clinic in a smart and resourceful way. We do have some tools to help with something called defensible documentation. So when a therapist is trying to negotiate their rates with patient or with an insurer, they can show the documentation and proof as to why they are of the value they're claiming to be, because they're showing improvement of that patient's work.
I've heard doctors say that it's, some people will suffer injuries and they will literally do no physical therapy of any kind. And they don't realize that just because you're not experiencing any residual negative effects from your injury in the present, that rehabbing is not something that you can do anytime you want for any point in your life, that your body will react to the rehabilitation of the injury better if you do it in the proper time frame. How vital is that? And so now this becomes a resource for people who have injuries and they're using a physical therapist to quicken their process, to improve their results potentially, and to overall strengthen their body to prevent future injury. Am I reading that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. All too often, the way our healthcare system in the United States is set up is we're very reactive to injury. We, as rehab therapists, have tried to focus on being more proactive and focus on injury prevention. If you do incur or sustain some sort of injury, it is important that you start receiving treatment and care as soon as you possibly can. With musculoskeletal conditions, there can be long-term side effects if you're not treating that immediately. And to see the recovery and the results you're looking for, you're going to prolong that by withholding yourself from treatment and causing more long-term sustained damage to the body. So getting in and being aware that you have access to treatment and tools as soon as possible is something that a lot of users and patients aren't always aware of. And we're trying to help create that accessibility and education that these are tools you should be using at the onset, if not before an injury occurs.
Couple more minutes with Casey Bateman from Telmetrix.co. This is all really interesting to me. When you, when you're talking to like a physical rehabilitation specialist, what kind of reaction are you getting from them as far as you're creating a complement to what they do? I'm sure you've sought out their thoughts on Telmetrix.co and in the creation of it. What kind of reaction are you getting from them? They're on the front lines.
We've gotten a lot of positive reaction. It's been hard to implement technology into rehab clinics over the last 15, 20 years because of the cost. Clinics run at extremely at extremely tight margins, and it's hard for them to afford those tools. We're trying to create creative solutions that are affordable and provide the most valuable information that they believe they need. We know that adherence to home exercise programs is extremely low. It's usually between 27 and 35% of patients following through on a home exercise program. And it can be a rather uncomfortable conversation with the physical therapist checking in whether a patient has done the work they're being asked. It's just like a kid talking to their teacher at school about homework, whether they did it or not. And you can tell immediately whether they've studied or done the work. But they may still not want to be upfront and honest about it. With our tools we're providing, it makes it a much easier conversation. We're able to track that adherence. And if a patient's not able to do their home exercise program for 2 or 3 days in a row, it opens the door for the therapist to talk to them in a much more natural and comfortable manner and really find out why. It could be the reason they're not doing the home exercise program is nothing more than they have to get their kid to soccer practice and they don't have time. So now the therapist is aware of that. They can make changes to enable the patient to reach success with doing some of those tasks that they need to do for their own well-being. That's been probably the most positive thing we've seen. The other thing that's been really fantastic is getting a large amount of data to the therapist to make better decisions on clinical protocol. That's just never been accessible because how expensive that data collection can normally be.
Let's not knock Cliff Notes or Monarch Notes. They helped me get through high school, but yeah, there's no Cliff Notes version of Telmetrix.co, right? There's no.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I wanted to ask you before we let you go. As far as we're having this conversation, and some people may have been hearing about Telmetrix.co for the first time. Is there other residual benefits to going to the site for people that are hearing about it for the first time and they're thinking, yeah, you know what, I want to check this out, and maybe we've talked about some aspects of it, but is there something that we haven't hit that you would say, yeah, you know what, there's real value to the public in going to Telmetrix.co for this particular reason, or is there a common denominator outside of sports injuries where people seek out the information that you guys have generated?
Of course, yeah. I would say that if you're in any sort of workplace and you're looking for ways to reduce your risk of injury at work, send your employer over to us. We're working with various companies to help with risk assessments of musculoskeletal conditions. There are some demos of our tools on the site so people can learn. If you're in physical therapy right now and you're struggling to get through the home exercise programs that are being prescribed to you, talk to your therapist and let them know we're an option and a tool. And we'd be happy to talk to their clinic to get them onboarded with some new tools that may help them and create the behavioral change to get healthy and maintain a healthy lifestyle.
Casey, a really interesting conversation. Where do you see the future of going as far as Telmetrix? Where would you, is this the first step of many, or how do you see it positioned going forward?
Yeah, definitely the first step of many. We've chosen this vertical because this is where I am probably the strongest suited. Coming from rehab therapy and university and schooling, we definitely want to get more to a consumer direct model at some point with various tools, whether it's more personal training style or sports specific, whether it's golf or tennis or trying to self-care and self-treat yourself. We do see that there's value without taking from the therapist. The other thing that we're really looking at over the next few years is getting into preventative care and truly preventative care. So being able to collect large amounts of data to start analyzing users who may be going through our functional mobility assessment on their first time and saying, hey, you're 22, you are at a high risk, let's say 87% of a total knee replacement by the time you're 55. Let's create tools and programs for you so that we can drop or reduce your risk so you don't have to go through that total knee replacement, in 20 years, and really help the patient or user at that point change their lifestyle in very small and incremental ways to maintain healthy mobility through the entirety of their lifetime.
It was really a pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for advertising on the Krueg Show. Thanks you for giving us the opportunity to represent a fine product and an intelligent product and something that's going to help our audience. I think that really is very, very cool. And thanks again. We really did enjoy meeting you, and we've enjoyed representing your company, and onward and upward. We hope nothing but success for you guys going forward.
Yeah, and this